Go get him live real quick before he goes on stage. I hope the music doesn't get me demonetized. That would be unfortunate if the music demonetized me. Some shout outs. That'd be so great if he could go and sing that. Catches my real test. I love you guys so much.
All right.
Oh, he's about to go. Oh, is he already out there? Oh no.
Our mic's on?
Oh no, he came out the other way.
What's going on, everybody? How we doing? This is the history of flipping. My name is Buster Scher. I'm moderating it, and we've got Josh Cooper, Jeremy Padawar, Garrett Chavez on the panel. Guys, I want to give you 1 second just to introduce yourself. We only need 25 minutes, so speed intro. Who are you? What do you do? You want to start?
Are we just reading off this? I'm Josh Cooper, co-founder, chief vision officer of Fanatic Collectibles.
Beautiful. Jeremy?
Yeah, Jeremy Padawar, I'm chief brand officer of Jazzwares. We're the makers of Pokemon, Squishmallows, Cocomelon, Fortnite, Roblox, etc. Toys.
Yeah.
I'm Garrett Chavez, CEO of Hero Maker Studios, but big history in the superhero world with Wizard Magazine and starting Comic-Con.
Yeah. We got a stacked panel here when it comes to physical collectibles. And my first question is, since this is the history of flipping, what are the key things that you guys look for before you get into a new area of collectibles that you think could be exploding? Josh, you predicted it was sneakers, cards, among other things. Jeremy, toys, Pokemon, a million things. Garrett with comics and a million other things. Josh, what are the things that you look for before getting involved in a new industry of collectibles?
I feel like we have a lot of energy. We should calm down.
We only got 25 minutes.
I know, I'm going to take as much time as I can. Look, it's all supply and demand. This is Econ 101 at its most basic at every level, no matter what product you're talking about. We're trying to understand how much supply there is for a product, which is usually a known quantity, but like what's the demand? And any scenario where you have more demand than there is supply, you're going to have a scenario where you have secondary market lines, be able to use scarcity as a marketing tactic and everything that goes along with it that I'm sure everyone here is pretty familiar with. So that's the foundation, which is way less sexy than, $50,000 sneakers or $1 million cards, but that's the core.
Jeremy, what do you look for?
Yeah, so for me it depends on whether I'm wearing my collector hat or my manufacturer hat. So as a collector, I look for things like brands that are like 15 years old, 10 to 15 years old, where the original consumers were like 10 and now they're 20 to 25 and they start having access to capital. So if you look at things like Hunger Games today, I believe that tomorrow that's going to be a much more valuable IP to collect, or something like Twilight, But as a manufacturer, we look for eyeballs. We're most interested in seeing where humans are engaging with content, and it has to have the right play pattern, or it has to have the right theme for us to make product against it.
I'm just going to interrupt you. So both of those points were demand. So both, whether it's the eyeballs, whether it's nostalgia and that group, those are just different factors and different ways to capture and understand demand.
Garrett, what do you look for?
Yeah, to me, it's all about passion. You gotta love what you're doing. It doesn't matter what it is. When you find a passion for something and you start collecting, you're gonna find a community around it. And then once you feel like you're part of that community, that's when it all explodes, and that's when supply and demand, and people are gonna manufacture. People are gonna, you don't need a million people these days to build something. You can build something for tens of thousands of people and really set that passion on fire with really cool stuff.
And Garrett actually had one of the coolest collectibles I had ever been aware of with your Watchmen original art, right?
Oh yeah. So I've been a big comic book art collector my entire life, and because I knew a lot of the artists when they were growing up, it was kind of like a little bit like insider trading. I had the magazines, so I knew which ones were going to be popular because we'd write about them. And I was able to pick up all 12 covers to the original Watchmen series at auction. And at the time, I grossly overpaid for it, but I couldn't believe that they were all together. And so that's been a big passion of mine. Also, I was a big McFarlane collector. So I've become friends with Todd McFarlane back in the early days. and became kind of the world's largest McFarlane art collector. He regretted selling us the stuff. He wanted to actually buy it all back, but we said no.
That's pretty funny. Josh, you mentioned demand a few times. How do you figure out how much demand there is for an entire category? What sort of metrics do you use to figure that out?
So there's this website called StockX. Check it out here now. You know, I joke, but like the secondary market gets a bad rap in a lot of ways historically, but that's really like your metric. That's where you can actually see supply and demand for consumer goods come together, because at the retail level, brands, whether it's Nike or Supreme or Adidas or comic books or toys, the retail world is stuck on the concept of retail price, and they don't use variable pricing. They don't understand. They don't need to take the idea to understand demand and actually create a market price. So the secondary market, whether it's StockX or eBay or an auction house or wherever, that's actually where you start to see secondary demand come together, and that price, that's your indicator.
Makes sense. Jeremy, this is something you and I have talked about a few times, but the difference between physical collectibles and digital collectibles in terms of how difficult it is to enter.
Yeah.
Obviously, Web3 and NFTs are much easier to create than a physical toy at mass scale. Why is it so important for everybody to be aware of that when getting into Web3, and also to be aware of it when getting into physical collectibles?
Yeah, so be very careful. So here's the reality. When you make a physical product, the barriers to entry are very high, right? You have to have sourcing and relationships with manufacturing, and you have to have an operations group and finance, accounting, and all the stuff that requires you to take inventory. And then you're dealing with retail. You were dealing with direct consumer a lot, which is the genius model of models, but I'm dumb, I'm old school, so selling to all the major retailers. And so the outcome means that there are very few organizations that can execute on that. And having started from scratch, now we're the fourth largest toy company, which is crazy, but starting from scratch, we were in a position where we didn't have any power whatsoever. So 99 out of 100 of those, 999 out of 100 end up falling for the wayside. On the digital side, it's a different world. I mean, everybody in this room could create the next franchise, okay? But I say franchise for a reason. Because if you're looking to just create an NFT program without a roadmap, the barriers to entry are so low, they're literally on the floor. Anyone can do it, okay?
Right.
The problem with that is demand. I'll go back to Mr. Luber. He said demand is everything, right? If you don't have demand, you don't have a floor price. And so the difference, therefore, is when you go into these things and they say the roadmap's important, it's critically important. Because for me, if I'm looking at creating toys, I might have Disney, Universal, Warner Brothers, you name it, and it'll pass 99 out of 100 opportunities to make physical toys. Now you take that into a space where you have no eyeballs on various projects, and that's why it's so difficult to pair digital opportunities with a real serious franchise plan. So anyways, that's my one piece of advice. If you're out there developing, develop a big roadmap that's actually going to lead you down the path.
So let me just actually add on to that, because today we spent a lot of time at Zero Pool talking to brands about making trading cards. And every single brand, without exception, asks, well, what about NFTs? Are there going to be digital trading cards? Are there going to be NFT trading cards? And the answer to all that is maybe, but anybody can actually make an NFT. The ability to make a physical trading card, particularly now given supply chain challenges over the past couple of years, is way more scarce, ironically, even though NFTs can be one-of-ones, you can make a million one-of-ones, but it's actually way harder, to your point, to make physical goods. And there's a way higher barrier of entry, and because of that, to your point, like, that digital product, when you make in there, like, you gotta figure out how to build demand, how to build a roadmap, all of that, which is way different than the inherent scarcity of physical products.
Absolutely. Now, obviously, you guys know the utility of digital goods is very high. And so ultimately, when we're having the 10th VCon, there'll be a lot of conversations about all the utility-based programs that are there versus the collector-based programs that are there. And I think that's probably gonna be the future of the digital space. Like, really getting you somewhere that you couldn't have otherwise achieved. I mean, when the iPhone came out, you're looking at all the apps and you're like, what are all these things for? Right? Well, why is this going to improve my life? Well, 10 years later, it's very clear why.
But the utility-based digital goods, now you're actually going to something that actually, again, has a higher barrier of entry because you have to create something around that.
Yeah.
You have to create some sort of value there that it's not simply the digital asset. So, no, I'm with you. That's clearly the...
Like, traditionally, if there was a Michael Jordan game-worn jersey at auction, that jersey does not grant you access to Michael Jordan. But there are a lot of athletes that will create stuff that does grant you. Tom Brady is releasing stuff that allows you to play football with Tom Brady. But if you just buy his game-worn jersey at auction, you don't get any of that. So it has to have that sort of involvement, which, to, you know, the credit of everybody who says not that many, you know, most NFT projects aren't going to win, is because they don't have access to give that utility to their base.
Right, and then to you, but just the one thing, Tom Brady is the barrier to entry.
Right.
Tom Brady's jersey is sort of like dealing with the Walmarts of the world, etc. Sorry, Gary.
No, you know, to me, I look at it as mass customization, right? So if you think that you're just going to create a digital version of a physical collectible, it's just not going to work. You know, you really have to take every new medium for what makes it unique. And, you know, to me, Web3 and NFTs enable us to create mass customization. Every single person can get something very unique within the same collection. And when you can provide utility and other types of access that people can have, whether it's in real life or through digital or through any other types of medium, and then certainly with Web3, it enables this idea of ownership, right, and commercial rights. So it's not just, okay, here's a physical collectible, and I have to follow whatever journey you want me on. Web3 enables us, through commercial rights, to now take this NFT that we own, and then take it on our own journey, right? So one of the things that we like to talk about is the philosophy of our company is the hero's journey, right? When you see a film or a TV show, you're on someone else's journey. For us, if you create a collectible that somebody's going to own, how do we enable people to be on their journey? I don't want them to finish my journey. How do they become the hero of that circumstance, and providing utility and tools to make that happen?
Yeah, it's definitely much more personalized. Like when people buy, you know, a certain project that has really utility and they add it as their literal profile picture, it is making it their face. And that connection is something that's pretty extraordinary, and something that, you know, I think has existed with physical, you know, collectibles, whether it be sneakers, people posting it every single day as a piece of their outfit, which is an expression of who they are, or like, you know, if I'm posting this collectible, this Abraham Lincoln signature that I just bought as, you know, part of me, and it's an extension in the same way that these are. I want to ask you guys.
Wait, sorry, how are you? Is Abraham Lincoln a part of you?
Well, I collect Abraham Lincoln, and I do I identify with that, you know, as my personal collection. It says something about my interests in the same way that
I know, I like
a sneaker would for others.
Talk about fan. I have some Abraham Lincoln trading cards.
We should talk.
Yeah.
Is flipping good for overall collectibles and asset classes? Is that a good thing, and why?
I'm going last.
Okay, I'll go first, fine. So, yeah, the secondary market is really good, okay, for anything that you're launching. But as a manufacturer, so for instance, we tend to focus on mass, specialty, grocery, drug. We canvass all the different types of retail, all the different categories of retail. So we like to give the wins to the consumers. So if we're creating Pokemon or Halo, Roblox, whatever it may be, we'll do a 1 of 2,000 and put it in the main line item. We charge the exact same, and they're chasers for retail, to get people to go to retail. So essentially what it doesn't do is it doesn't put us to take advantage of the secondary market, but it gives consumers a reason to go back over and over again to try to explore that. And so something like, you know, Pokemon is a phenomenal example of that, because, you know, look, they've got the biggest brand in the history of retail from an entertainment standpoint. And if we went out and decided that we were going to do a 1 of 100 and sell them for $10,000 each, it could put some people off. But if you put that in the hands of the consumer and let consumers sell them for $10,000, no one is at all put off by it, because they realize that's not a manufacturer that took advantage. That's a manufacturer that handed the advantage over to the consumer.
Yeah, the secondary market is absolutely invaluable. it's so a part of being in the collectible business. I mean, there's no more PR you can get than when you issue something and then in the secondary market it goes for a lot of money. We had an example once in our toy magazine called Toy Fair. We did there was a scene in The Simpsons where Homer works in the nuclear factory and he's wearing a glow-in-the-dark suit. So we did an exclusive glow-in-the-dark Homer, and we sold it through the magazine. We had 12,000 that we created. We got in 30,000 orders for it. And we sold it, I think, for like $15 at the time. When it came out in the secondary market, they were going for hundreds of dollars on eBay. And that now, once we did that, every single toy that we did afterwards sold out instantly and drove so much more interest in it. And not that you want that to happen, where you want a lot of people not to get it, but the psychology behind it drives so much more interest in your project than just the initial sale.
And trivia here is that one of the next things that they did was some WWE limited edition figures that we manufactured.
Yes.
And those were freaking awesome as well.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, we gave the value to the consumer, as did you, because if the secondary market values were not higher than the primary, you would never have another turn at bat. It would be over. That would be the end.
We always say, better sell one too few than one too many.
Yeah.
For sure. Josh?
I mean, at the risk of this becoming an economics lecture, and going to, like, there's so much that we can talk about this, and there's so much that this is baked into the core philosophy and vision of everything that I've done in the last decade of my career, but for sure, Zero Cool, the trading card brand that we're building right now for culture. Both of the two releases that we've done, D-Friends and Jackass, were sold as a blind Dutch auction. And again, like, the lights are so bright, I can't tell if everyone's already sleeping going into this part of the lights are bright. But that...
Woo! Get that bread!
Wow, that's amazing. We just sit there and ask for applause. No, I'll make this quick. So, we actually put out a blog post that was a recap of the V-Friends auction. It's 45 pages, and it's got charts and graphs, but it's a deep dive for anyone who's interested about why the evolution of brands. You know, you said that you put the value in the hands of the consumer. It looks bad for you to do it with all these things. Like, all of this is a convergence of fair distribution. This is all just about an equitable distribution, a process that everybody can agree is fair, that consumers feel like they're getting the best value, that's fair to the manufacturers, it's fair to the licensors, and all of this for both things that I've worked on in my career and what we're looking forward. None of this do we make up. None of this are we trying to pigeonhole something that no one has seen before. This is how the stock market and financial markets have worked for decades. And that's really the core of a lot of what we're doing. So again, I don't want to end up, I'll easily take all the rest of the time, but like, this is an important part of everything that we do, of NFTs, of collectibles, of everything we're talking about. And I think it's only going to get better as we all have better access to better data, and people like this are thinking about it holistically. Anyway, thanks for that.
Attaching that to the digital space, you know, when you guys are looking for programs that are out there and there's a floor price, and the original floor price when they offer it on minting is 0.03 ETH versus 0.3 ETH versus 3 ETH, you know, obviously the risks are magnitudes higher, not just because it costs more, but because you're betting on the fact that there's going to be greater demand beyond the mint phase where they're marketing the heck out of it. And so that's the big takeaway. The big takeaway from physical to digital is that it's all based on the same things. Demand, supply, scarcity, rarity, marketing, all of it. It all has to play together. You hear roadmap over and over again, but at the end of the day, the roadmap is just the marketing machine. How are they going to continue to keep this relevant so that floor price stays high?
Right, and sort of the interesting difference between physical collectibles and digital is usually the physical collectible comes after the creation of the IP, and the work has sort of already been done in a lot of ways. Like when you see, you know, these Star Wars characters or comics, and action figures selling for insane amounts, it's because of the movies and the people's association. It's because Harry Potter was so great. It's because people have an association to the Pokemon IP through the TV shows and movies, whereas in Web3, it's sort of a future promise.
Yeah.
And my next question is more around what sort of a place do physical collectibles have in a world that is and has moved so much more digital? And maybe you guys want to bounce sort of off of that concept.
Well, I'll just push back slightly on the premise of the question, which is to say that your point on the future promise of digital collectibles and NFT communities that are created is dead on. I mean, there's a tremendous amount that's baked into that, but it's still about brand. It's all about brand, right? We're all here because of the brand of Gary and VFriends and VCon, and the winners of the space so far, you know, Bored Apes and CryptoPunks and World, like, it's about brand, and you have that in physical, digital, like, it doesn't matter, right? Brands sort of evolve. So I think that, I would say, is as important as the nature of that forward-looking value. Anyway, so.
And that's reputation too, right? Like, reputation carries over whatever you do.
Right.
Like the creators of a big TV show or anything, if they, if George Lucas wants to do something new, I think everybody in this room is going to be interested.
Yeah, to me, I have a little different take, where it's more, to me, it's more about storytelling. That's, to me, the thing that drives everything, because the storytelling is what drives that emotional connection between the characters and the fans, right? So when you see how these characters evolve over time, that's what resonates with you. And you need that first in order for you to then make the purchase, because once people don't just walk into places and buy random stuff. They buy something that they associate or they have this kind of deeper connection with. And the story is what does that. So whether, you know, in the film or television, that might tell the story that gets you to buy the physical product. Especially with comic books, the story is the product. And that's why so many films and television shows and toy lines and video games have emerged from comic books, because that's one of the original storytelling prospects. So, storytelling.
I'll just say this: every generation has its new way to communicate, and that communication tool has ramifications in terms of the way we see ourselves and what we want to express our fandom about. No one thing has replaced another. So I've been in toys long enough to where video games came out, and video games were going to kill toys. That was it. No more toys. Well, the toy industry grew. And frankly speaking, we wouldn't have ever been able to compete if not for focusing on gaming. And that's why Pokemon and Roblox and all this other stuff became so meaningful. That's why we were able to grow. So this is just another opportunity to leverage the strength of communities and the strength of fandom that's going to be expressed in a new generational way to approach content.
So really coming down to the storytelling, that's the big takeaway.
Well, it's actually storytelling, it's community, it is brand, it's really everything coming together. And the more it comes together, the bigger it's going to be and the more people are going to want to be embracing it.
What are your guys' rails before we close out here? You guys have a rail, you know, this is called the history of flipping. Whether you flipped it or you still have it, you have a favorite piece in your guys' collections?
Yeah, so for me it was, it's the McFarlane art. So with Wizard 1, there was the McFarlane cover that he did. It was actually a birthday present that we commissioned Todd McFarlane to draw for my dad for his birthday. And then I wound up using it for the cover of Wizard 1. And it's Spider-Man in this wizard costume. But the interesting story was, I called up Todd and I said, Todd, I want to use it for the cover of Wizard number 1. I said, but I also don't want to just use it without your permission. I said, is there something we could give you, money, whatever? And he goes, yeah, send me a case of 89 Upper Deck Canadian hockey cards. So at the time it was like a $3,000 box, you know, literally a case of cards. So we shipped him a case, and that was the deal.
So I'll tell you mine real quick, and I have an announcement. So mine's a first edition, first print Harry Potter hardcover book. It's in fact, it's probably the most pristine one. Paid almost $200,000 for it. And then one in lower condition just sold for $500.
Oh my God.
But don't judge me. This is a lifetime of this sickness that I have. The quick announcement is, and then on to Josh, is that Squishmallows is one of our brands, and we're creating a VFriends Squishmallows concept. and there's going to be 4 styles that are going to be launching. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
Amazing. I really don't have like a single grail. You know, there's been so many interesting things that I've collected over the years, but only because I just saw it upstairs. There's a trading card from 1964 that is Muhammad Ali and the Beatles, and it's that famous poster where he's like punching and they're falling down. And I think I have the largest collection. I've kind of cornered the market on that card and have the most of it. And I just think like that's such an iconic card because you have the Beatles and Muhammad Ali, right? Like it doesn't get more iconic than that. And that is literally the driving force for Zero Cool and all the things that we're doing, which is that those people are as important and as iconic as any athletes ever. And so that collection of mine is actually a big driver of the vision and all the things we've done. So
that's amazing. Well, without any further ado, that is our time. So let's ladies and gentlemen.
Howdy, partner. I'm live on YouTube. You want me to shut it off real quick?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. Hi.
What's going on? What is going on? It's good to see you, my
You too.
bro.
How you been?
Yeah, good. Yeah, really
Cool.
good.
Are you speaking all these days? Or
No, I think this is one and done.
okay.
Yeah.
You traveling tomorrow?
No, I'm going to be here all day.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Could is there any chance I can see you again? I know. Got to
I'm so
represent
happy
the
to
BB
see
shirt.
you, brother.
You too.
Amazing to see you. I didn't even say Omi one time.
Yeah.
I didn't say BB one time.
It's 100% okay.
I'm sorry.
Do you have like a line of people getting to? Is there any way I can message you on Twitter? I'll see you tomorrow?
Yeah. Send me a note. Send me a note.
All right, we'll do. Thank you so much. All right,
Good to
I
see
love you.
All right, love you too, brother. Yeah.
You want me to take one?
That was awesome. I don't know where my friend is. Like, oh, there they are. Okay. So I guess I'll be hanging for him tomorrow. All right, I gotta go, guys. I'll catch y'all later. Bye.